Welcome to TrueCrime Unveiled podcast. Dive deep into the mysteries that captivate us. If you appreciate this episode, please consider liking and subscribing to support us.
The year is 2017. Social media feeds are flooded with images of turquoise waters, luxurious white tents, and supermodels frolicking on pristine beaches. It's the marketing campaign for Fyre Festival, a supposedly exclusive music festival on a private island in the Bahamas, promoted as a once-in-a-lifetime luxury experience. Tickets cost thousands, some even paying hundreds of thousands for VIP packages. The mastermind behind this venture, Billy McFarland, a young entrepreneur, promised a lavish escape. But beneath the veneer of glamour and exclusivity, a sinister reality was brewing. This wasn't a festival. It was a ticking time bomb of fraud, deception, and ultimately a stark illustration of the dangers of social media hype and influencer culture.
The promotional materials, expertly crafted by McFarland and his team, painted a picture of paradise. Private jets, gourmet meals prepared by celebrity chefs, yacht parties, and performances by top musical artists were all promised. Influencers like Kendall Jenner, Bella Hadid, and Emily Ratajkowski were paid handsomely to promote the festival to their millions of followers. The marketing campaign created an aura of exclusivity and desirability, driving immense demand for tickets. But the reality on the ground, as we'll soon uncover, was far removed from this manufactured image of luxury. It was a stark contrast, a betrayal of trust on a massive scale, and it left thousands stranded, cheated, and demanding answers.
Indeed, the stage was set for what would become one of the most infamous scams of the 21st century. Very few knew the true extent of the deception that was unfolding. The private island, once owned by Pablo Escobar, was far from ready to host a festival of this magnitude. The promised luxury accommodations were non-existent. Instead of gourmet meals, attendees were served cheese sandwiches in styrofoam containers. The carefully curated online image was about to clash violently with the chaotic reality on the ground. And as the festival's start date loomed, the cracks in McFarland's fabricated paradise began to widen, revealing the true nature of his fraudulent scheme.
Before the chaos of Fyre Festival unfolded, the Exumas, a district of the Bahamas, was a picture of tranquility. Imagine pristine beaches, with sand as white as powdered sugar, kissed by the gentle turquoise waves of the Caribbean Sea. Local fishermen, their faces weathered by the sun and salt, would bring in their daily catch, the air filled with the scent of the ocean and the cries of gulls. Life moved at a slower pace, dictated by the rhythm of the tides and the warmth of the Bahamian sun. The islands, sparsely populated and largely untouched by mass tourism, offered a secluded escape, a world away from the bustling cities and the pressures of modern life. This was the serene backdrop against which Billy McFarland chose to stage his extravagant and ultimately disastrous festival, a stark contrast to the quiet lives of the islanders.
The local community thrived on a close-knit, interconnected existence. Generations of families had built their lives around fishing, boat building, and small-scale tourism, fostering a strong sense of community and shared responsibility. Their days were filled with the simple pleasures of island life: children playing in the shallows, families gathering for evening meals, the sounds of laughter and music drifting through the warm night air. They relied on the delicate balance of their ecosystem, respecting the ocean that provided their livelihood and the land that sustained them. This inherent respect for nature and their sustainable way of life was about to be drastically disrupted by the influx of thousands of festival-goers, promised a luxury experience they would never receive.
The Exumas had a reputation as a haven for those seeking seclusion and natural beauty, a place where time seemed to slow down. Wealthy individuals owned private villas tucked away amidst the lush vegetation, seeking refuge from the prying eyes of the world. The local economy, while modest, was stable, built on a foundation of sustainable practices and a deep respect for the natural environment. The arrival of Fyre Festival, with its promises of lavish accommodations and celebrity-studded parties, was viewed by some with cautious optimism, a potential opportunity for economic growth. However, this optimism would soon be replaced by disbelief and anger, as the true nature of McFarland's scheme became apparent, leaving the community to grapple with the aftermath of his broken promises.
The festival's promotional materials painted a picture of exclusive luxury, a world of private jets, gourmet meals, and glamorous accommodations. This image was jarringly incongruous with the reality of the island's infrastructure and the local way of life. The sheer scale of the promised event, thousands of attendees descending upon these quiet islands, was unprecedented. The local workforce, accustomed to a slower pace and smaller-scale projects, was ill-equipped to handle the logistical demands of such a massive undertaking. The seeds of disaster were sown from the very beginning, a clash between the grandiose fantasy of Fyre Festival and the peaceful reality of the exumas. The islanders, caught in the middle, would bear the brunt of McFarland's recklessness.
The marketing for Fyre Festival was undeniably brilliant. It tapped into a very specific millennial desire for luxury, exclusivity, and Instagrammable experiences. Supermodels, private jets, and breathtaking beaches. The imagery promised an unforgettable escape. Influencers amplified this message, unknowingly painting a picture of paradise that was far from the reality waiting for attendees. The promotional videos were slickly produced, showcasing a utopian party atmosphere, further fueling the hype. Tickets, ranging from thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars, sold out rapidly, demonstrating the power of persuasive marketing and the allure of the Fyre Festival's carefully crafted image. The organizers masterfully exploited social media, creating a digital echo chamber that reverberated with anticipation for this supposedly once-in-a-lifetime event. It all seemed too good to be true, and, as we'll see, it was.
Indeed, beneath the veneer of luxury lurked a chaotic and disorganized reality. While the marketing campaign projected an image of seamless planning and opulent accommodations, the actual groundwork for the festival was severely lacking. Billy McFarland, the mastermind behind Fyre Festival, had a history of ambitious but ultimately failed ventures. This pattern of over-promising and under-delivering would become a tragic hallmark of the Fyre Festival disaster. Reports began to surface of missed deadlines, unpaid vendors, and logistical nightmares. The promised gourmet meals, luxury villas, and musical performances were thrown into question as the festival date drew closer. The idyllic island portrayed in the promotional materials was, in reality, a construction site with barely any infrastructure in place to host thousands of attendees. The seeds of disaster were sown, hidden beneath the glossy surface of the Fyre Festival's carefully curated image.
One of the most striking elements of this story is the sheer disconnect between the advertised experience and the eventual reality. Attendees, lured by promises of luxurious accommodations, arrived to find disaster relief tents and soggy sandwiches. The promised gourmet meals prepared by celebrity chefs were replaced with pre-packaged cheese sandwiches, a stark contrast to the opulent feasts advertised. The private villas and luxury accommodations were nowhere to be found, replaced by basic tents that were inadequate for the number of people attending. This stark contrast between expectation and reality quickly fueled outrage and panic among the festival goers, many of whom were stranded with limited resources and no clear plan for their return. The situation rapidly deteriorated, turning the dream vacation into a logistical nightmare. The sense of betrayal and disappointment was palpable, as attendees realized they had been victims of a meticulously crafted scam.
The promised musical performances, another major draw for attendees, also fell apart. Blink-182, one of the headline acts, pulled out at the last minute, citing concerns about the inadequate staging and production facilities. This cancellation, announced via Twitter, was one of the first public cracks in the Fyre Festival facade. It signaled to the outside world that the event was in serious trouble, and it began to unravel the carefully constructed illusion of luxury and seamless execution. Other performers followed suit, leaving the festival with a significantly diminished musical lineup. This further fueled the growing discontent among attendees, who had paid exorbitant prices for a promised experience that was rapidly disintegrating before their eyes. The absence of the promised musical acts served as a stark reminder of the deception at the heart of Fyre Festival.
The initial cracks in Billy McFarland's Fyre Festival facade started to show months before the event was scheduled. Promotional materials showcased luxurious villas and gourmet meals, fueling social media hype and driving ticket sales into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. However, behind the scenes, the reality was far different. Reports began to surface about disorganization, missed deadlines, and unpaid vendors. Internal emails revealed growing concerns among McFarland's team about the feasibility of pulling off the promised extravagant event. The initial warning signs, though subtle, hinted at the impending disaster. The promised private jets were downgraded to chartered commercial flights, and the luxury accommodations were revealed to be repurposed disaster relief tents. This bait-and-switch tactic became the first tangible instance of McFarland's deceptive practices, setting the stage for the larger unraveling of the festival and exposing the fraudulent nature of his enterprise.
The shift from luxury villas to disaster relief tents wasn't simply a logistical change. It represented a fundamental breach of contract and a blatant disregard for the attendees who had invested substantial sums of money based on McFarland's misrepresentations. These initial discrepancies, while alarming, were only the tip of the iceberg. As the festival's supposed start date loomed closer, the promised gourmet catering devolved into pre-packaged sandwiches, and the advertised world-class musical acts began to drop out, citing unpaid fees and concerns about the festival's viability. The growing list of broken promises began to paint a clear picture of a scam in progress, with McFarland seemingly prioritizing the illusion of luxury over the actual delivery of the promised experience. The escalating problems became undeniable evidence of a deliberate deception, transforming the Fyre Festival from a dream vacation into a logistical and legal nightmare.
One of the most disturbing aspects of the Fyre Festival debacle was the blatant disregard for the basic needs of the attendees. Beyond the downgraded accommodations and food, essential amenities like clean water, sanitation facilities, and adequate medical services were severely lacking. Reports emerged of overflowing toilets, limited access to drinking water, and a general lack of hygiene, creating a dangerous and unsanitary environment. This neglect went beyond mere inconvenience. It posed a significant health risk to the festival-goers, many of whom were stranded on the island with limited resources and no clear means of escape. These deplorable conditions further solidified the notion that McFarland's focus was solely on maintaining the illusion of luxury, even at the expense of the attendees' well-being. The lack of basic necessities exposed a callous disregard for human safety and further highlighted the criminal nature of the enterprise.
The unfolding disaster on the ground at the Fyre Festival wasn't simply a result of poor planning or unforeseen circumstances. It was the direct consequence of a series of deliberate deceptions and fraudulent activities orchestrated by Billy McFarland. He knowingly accepted payments for services he knew he couldn't deliver, misrepresented the reality of the festival to investors and attendees alike, and ultimately created a situation that endangered the health and safety of hundreds of people. The lack of basic amenities, coupled with the blatant misrepresentations in marketing materials, paints a picture of a calculated scheme driven by greed and a complete disregard for ethical business practices. The Fyre Festival became a stark example of how the pursuit of wealth and fame can lead to criminal behavior and devastating consequences.
The scene at Great Exuma descended into a chaotic free-for-all as the reality of the situation crashed down on the festival-goers. The advertised luxury villas turned out to be FEMA disaster relief tents, the gourmet catering was nothing more than pathetic cheese sandwiches, and the promised musical acts were nowhere to be seen. Social media exploded with images and videos of the unfolding disaster, a stark contrast to the glossy promotional material that had lured people there. Stranded attendees described a growing sense of panic as they realized they were trapped on an island with inadequate resources and little means of escape. The promised flights home were canceled, leaving many feeling abandoned and vulnerable. The initial excitement and anticipation rapidly curdled into fear and desperation as the true nature of Billy McFarland's deception became horrifyingly clear. The veneer of luxury had crumbled, revealing a dangerous and poorly planned venture.
The situation on the ground quickly spiraled from disorganized to downright dangerous. Basic necessities like food and water became scarce, and reports emerged of attendees fighting over limited supplies. The lack of communication from the organizers only fueled the growing anxiety, leaving people stranded and uncertain about their fate. Witness accounts described a palpable sense of fear as the sun set on the first night, the reality of being trapped in this chaotic environment sinking in. The initial reports trickling out from the island painted a grim picture of broken promises and a rapidly deteriorating situation, capturing the attention of media outlets worldwide. The festival grounds, once envisioned as a vibrant paradise, became a symbol of the colossal scam that had unfolded. The promised once-in-a-lifetime experience transformed into a nightmare.
Beyond the immediate chaos and logistical failures, a darker element began to surface. The sense of abandonment and vulnerability felt by attendees was compounded by the realization that they had been deliberately misled. The meticulously crafted social media campaign, The celebrity endorsements, the promises of luxury and exclusivity, all of it had been a carefully constructed illusion designed to extract money from unsuspecting victims. This realization added a layer of betrayal and anger to the already volatile situation, creating a sense of unease that went beyond the immediate discomfort. The festival grounds became a breeding ground for resentment and fear, a stark reminder of the human cost of McFarland's elaborate con.
As the story spread, the narrative shifted from a tale of festival failure to a full-blown criminal investigation. Authorities began looking into the financial dealings behind Fyre Festival, uncovering a web of fraudulent activities and misrepresentations. The scale of the deception became increasingly apparent, with millions of dollars invested based on false promises and fabricated documents. The seemingly glamorous facade of Fyre Media, the company behind the festival, crumbled under scrutiny, revealing a house of cards built on lies and manipulation. The unfolding events captured the public's attention, not just for the spectacle of the failed festival, but also for the complex financial fraud that lay beneath the surface. The Fyre Festival story was quickly becoming a cautionary tale of ambition, deception, and the devastating consequences of unchecked greed.
Let's delve deeper into Billy McFarland's psychology. On the surface, he projected an image of a successful entrepreneur, a visionary. He cultivated this persona through extravagant displays of wealth, celebrity endorsements, and promises of luxury experiences. He fostered a culture of exclusivity, making people feel special to be part of his ventures. This carefully crafted image played a crucial role in convincing investors and attendees that Fyre Festival was going to be the ultimate luxury music festival. However, beneath this veneer of success lay a pattern of deception and manipulation. His previous venture, Magneses, which offered exclusive experiences to millennials, also faced accusations of overpromising and underdelivering, hinting at a pattern of behavior that would culminate in the Fyre Festival disaster. This raises the question, was he a delusional optimist who genuinely believed he could pull it off, or a calculated con artist who intentionally misled everyone for personal gain?
That's a key question, and the evidence suggests a complex mix of both. McFarland's actions reveal a disconnect between his aspirations and his ability to execute them. He seemed to believe his own hype, consistently overestimating his capabilities and underestimating the logistical realities of organizing such a large-scale event. He displayed a disregard for planning and preparation, focusing instead on creating a buzz and generating excitement. This suggests a narcissistic tendency, a belief in his own infallibility despite mounting evidence to the contrary. He surrounded himself with people who were either unwilling or unable to challenge him, further reinforcing his distorted view of reality. The documented instances of him pressuring employees to engage in illegal activities, like importing alcohol without paying customs duties, demonstrate a willingness to cross legal and ethical boundaries to achieve his goals.
The psychological profile that emerges is one of a charismatic individual driven by a relentless pursuit of status and recognition. He used charm and manipulation to convince others to invest in his vision, even when that vision lacked a solid foundation. This points to a lack of empathy and a disregard for the consequences of his actions on others. He seemed more concerned with maintaining the illusion of success than with actually delivering on his promises. The sheer scale of the deception involved in Fyre Festival, from the falsified promotional materials to the last-minute scramble to provide even basic accommodations, suggests a deep-seated need for external validation, even if it was built on a foundation of lies. It's a classic case of fake it till you make it, taken to an extreme.
And ultimately, it didn't work. The disconnect between the promised luxury and the stark reality on the ground became impossible to ignore. The social media storm that erupted exposed the fraudulent nature of the festival and brought McFarland's carefully constructed world crashing down around him. The consequences were swift and severe, with lawsuits, criminal charges, and ultimately, a prison sentence. While the Fyre Festival debacle serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the allure of fabricated realities, it also offers a fascinating glimpse into the psychology of a con artist, revealing the complex interplay of delusion, narcissism, and a desperate need for validation that can drive individuals to commit such elaborate acts of deception.
Let's delve into the investigative process following the disastrous Fyre Festival. Billy McFarland, the mastermind behind the event, had painted a picture of luxury and exclusivity. The reality, as we know, was far from it. Attendees arrived to find inadequate accommodations, meager food provisions, and a complete lack of organization. The subsequent investigation was hampered by the chaotic nature of the event itself. Key documents were likely lost or never properly filed amidst the disarray. The sheer scale of the deception made it difficult to pinpoint specific instances of fraud initially. Furthermore, McFarland's continued pronouncements of making things right, rescheduling, and offering refunds created false hope, delaying the inevitable legal action. This provided him a crucial window of opportunity, which he used to further his deception and cover his tracks.
Absolutely. One of the most frustrating aspects for investigators must have been the constant stream of misleading information disseminated by McFarland and his team. Even as the festival was collapsing around them, they continued to issue statements promising resolutions that never materialized. These false promises not only placated some attendees temporarily, but also clouded the investigative waters. They created confusion about the true nature of the situation, making it harder to distinguish between genuine logistical failures and intentional fraud. Moreover, the remote location of the festival presented significant logistical challenges to the investigation. Gathering evidence, interviewing witnesses, and securing the scene were all complicated by the island's remoteness. The sheer number of individuals and organizations involved, from investors to vendors to attendees, further compounded the complexity of the investigation.
The investigators also faced the challenge of untangling the web of shell companies and offshore accounts that McFarland had established. This financial labyrinth was deliberately designed to obscure the flow of money and make it difficult to trace funds. Furthermore, the initial focus on the immediate crisis, ensuring the safety and evacuation of attendees, likely diverted resources away from the early stages of the fraud investigation. This delay potentially allowed crucial evidence to be lost or destroyed. One can only imagine the frustration of investigators trying to piece together the financial puzzle, while simultaneously dealing with the fallout of a humanitarian crisis.
Indeed, the Fyre Festival investigation wasn't a straightforward case of following a clear paper trail. It required meticulous forensic accounting, painstaking interviews, and piecing together a complex puzzle of deception. Adding another layer of complexity were the social media posts from attendees, which, while providing valuable real-time documentation of the unfolding disaster, also presented a massive amount of data to sift through. Investigators had to verify the authenticity of posts, identify key witnesses, and separate genuine accounts from misinformation and rumors. This digital aspect of the investigation added a new dimension to the process, unlike many previous fraud cases. The sheer volume of digital evidence, both from official sources and social media, presented an unprecedented challenge.
The Fyre Festival wasn't just a logistical failure. It was a deeply personal betrayal. Attendees, many of whom had saved for months or even years to afford the exorbitant ticket prices, arrived expecting luxury and found themselves stranded in a chaotic, underdeveloped site. Beyond the immediate discomfort and disappointment, the scam inflicted lasting emotional scars. Many victims reported experiencing anxiety, panic attacks, and even symptoms of post-traumatic stress in the aftermath. The sense of vulnerability, of being deliberately misled and exploited, had a profound impact on their well-being. Imagine arriving in a foreign country, expecting paradise, only to find yourself in what can only be described as a disaster zone, with no clear way out. That sense of helplessness, coupled with the financial losses, created a perfect storm for long-term psychological distress.
Absolutely. And it's crucial to remember that the emotional fallout extended beyond the festival attendees themselves. Families back home anxiously awaited news from their loved ones, often with limited communication due to the chaotic conditions on the ground. The uncertainty and fear they experienced during those crucial hours and days undoubtedly took a toll. Moreover, the Bahamian community, who had been promised economic benefits from the festival, was also significantly impacted. Local vendors and workers, many of whom invested their own resources in preparation for the event, were left unpaid and deeply disillusioned. The Fyre Festival wasn't just a party gone wrong, it was a breach of trust that reverberated through various communities, leaving a trail of emotional wreckage in its wake.
The sheer scale of the deception is truly staggering. Attendees weren't just misled about the luxury accommodations and gourmet meals. They were essentially lured to a remote location under false pretenses, with little regard for their safety or well-beings. This calculated manipulation, coupled with the subsequent lack of accountability from the organizers, amplified the sense of betrayal and injustice. The legal battles that followed, while ultimately resulting in some measure of justice, couldn't fully erase the emotional trauma experienced by so many. The Fyre Festival serves as a stark reminder of the potential for large-scale fraud to inflict not just financial damage, but also deep and lasting emotional wounds.
And this is where the long-term unease comes into play. Many victims report a lingering sense of distrust, not just towards event organizers, but towards online marketing and social media influencers in general. The Fyre Festival highlighted the potential for these platforms to be used to create elaborate illusions, masking potentially harmful realities. This has led to a heightened sense of skepticism and caution among consumers, a sort of collective trauma that continues to shape online interactions and purchasing decisions. The incident forced a broader conversation about the responsibility of influencers and the need for greater transparency and accountability in the digital age.
The walls were closing in on Billy McFarland. The lavish lifestyle, the private jets, the celebrity endorsements, all of it was a facade built on lies. As investigators dug deeper, the mountain of evidence against him grew exponentially. Canceled musical acts, unpaid vendors, and the infamous cheese sandwich tweet. These were just the tip of the iceberg. Financial records revealed a complex web of shell companies and misappropriated funds. Millions of dollars intended for the festival had vanished, leaving investors and attendees in the lurch. The meticulously crafted image of a luxury music experience crumbled, revealing a fraudulent scheme of epic proportions. The question was no longer whether McFarland was responsible, but how long he could evade the inevitable consequences.
The testimonies of former employees and contractors painted a damning picture of McFarland's deceptive practices. They spoke of broken promises, forged documents, and a blatant disregard for the truth. One contractor described being pressured to inflate invoices, creating a false sense of progress to lure further investment. Another recalled witnessing McFarland instructing staff to delete incriminating emails. These first-hand accounts, coupled with the mounting financial evidence, provided investigators with the ammunition they needed to pursue criminal charges. The net was tightening, and McFarland's carefully constructed world of illusion was about to shatter. The festival grounds, once envisioned as a tropical paradise, now stood as a desolate monument to his deceit.
The unraveling was swift and brutal. Facing mounting pressure and the imminent threat of arrest, McFarland attempted to flee the country. However, his efforts were futile. In June 2017, he was apprehended by federal agents and charged with wire fraud. The arrest marked a dramatic turning point in the Fyre Festival saga. The charismatic entrepreneur who had once promised an unforgettable experience was now facing the prospect of a lengthy prison sentence. The meticulously crafted narrative of exclusive luxury had dissolved, leaving behind a trail of shattered dreams and financial ruin. The arrest was not a surprise, but rather the inevitable conclusion to a story of ambition gone horribly wrong.
McFarland's arrest sent shockwaves through the media and the public. The story of the Fyre Festival, once a subject of ridicule and internet memes, now took on a more serious tone. The legal proceedings that followed were complex and protracted. McFarland pleaded guilty to multiple counts of wire fraud, admitting to defrauding investors and vendors out of millions of dollars. The court heard harrowing accounts from victims who had lost their life savings, and from employees who had been manipulated and exploited. The sheer scale of the deception was staggering, and the damage inflicted was irreparable. The once celebrated entrepreneur was now exposed as a con artist, his reputation tarnished forever. The Fyre Festival, a symbol of extravagant failure, served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the allure of fabricated realities.
It's chilling, isn't it? We've spent 10 episodes dissecting the Fyre Festival debacle, meticulously piecing together the timeline of Billy McFarland's elaborate deception. We've examined the marketing blitz that promised luxury and delivered disaster, the social media influencers who unwittingly promoted a mirage, and the devastating impact on the Bahamian workers who were left unpaid. From the initial grandiose vision to the eventual chaotic reality, we've traced the downfall of a venture built on lies. Yet, despite the extensive coverage, the countless articles, and the documentaries, there's a lingering unease, a question that remains unanswered. How could such a blatant scam, perpetrated in broad daylight, fool so many?
Precisely. The Fyre Festival wasn't a sophisticated con executed in the shadows. It unfolded publicly, with warning signs visible to anyone who cared to look. The promotional videos showcasing a deserted island barely developed, the increasingly frantic attempts to secure funding, and the whispers of mismanagement circulating online all pointed towards impending disaster. Yet the allure of exclusivity, fueled by social media hype and celebrity endorsements, proved too powerful to resist for many. The desire to be part of something exclusive, to experience the promised luxury, blinded them to the glaring red flags. It speaks volumes about the seductive power of image and the willingness to suspend disbelief when presented with a compelling narrative.
And the human cost is staggering. Beyond the financial losses suffered by attendees and investors, there's the emotional toll. The Bahamian workers who toiled tirelessly, only to be cheated out of their earnings, represent a particularly tragic aspect of this story. Their trust was exploited, their livelihoods jeopardized, and their voices largely unheard in the aftermath of the festival's collapse. It serves as a stark reminder that these large-scale scams, often portrayed as victimless white-collar crimes, have real-world consequences for ordinary people.
Indeed, the Fyre Festival saga serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition, the allure of instant gratification, and the pervasiveness of deception in the digital age. While Billy McFarland ultimately faced legal repercussions, the larger questions remain. How do we protect ourselves from these kinds of scams in an increasingly complex and interconnected world? And perhaps more importantly, what does the Fyre Festival reveal about our own vulnerabilities and desires that allow such schemes to flourish? These are the questions that continue to resonate long after the tide has receded on the infamous island.
Thank you for walking with us through the shadows. The story doesn't end here. It lingers, echoing through time, reminding us that the darkest truths often hide in plain sight. Until next time, stay curious and stay vigilant.
This case remains unsolved. Perhaps the truth is still out there,